Easiest fruits, vegetables, and herbs to grow in container in pots for beginners. In this video, we will share with you about the 20 fruits and vegetables that you can grow in containers and pots for beginners. These range from bananas and citrus fruits to tomatoes, cucumbers, and just about anything else that you would normally plant in a larger garden. So whether you have a huge gardening space or not, if you want to grow your own foods, you can, and we've got the perfect foods for you to grow in those containers. Take a look, pick out your favorites. 1. Tomatoes. It's not surprise that tomatoes grow well in containers. After all, they do sell them in those upside-down growing containers, right? If you love fresh tomatoes throughout the year, you can easily grow them in just about any sized container, depending on the variety of tomato that you want to grow. You will want to be sure that the container is large enough to handle the plant, and you can begin with seeds or starter plants, whichever you prefer. Also, add a cage to the outside of the container for extra support as the plant gets taller. 2. Basil. You can grow basil indoors or out, and it's great for adding to soups and other recipes. Even if you don't have an all-out herb garden, you can grow a bit of basil for your favorite dishes. You'll need a 6-inch planter, some fresh potting soil, and of course, the basil. Keep in mind that when you water basil, you need to avoid getting the leaves and stem wet. It's best to pour water directly onto the soil. You also need to provide it with a bit of direct sunlight every day, so if you are planning to grow it indoors, make sure that you use containers that you can easily move to the deck during the sunniest part of the day. 3. Zucchini and summer squash. All types of squash grow well in containers, particularly summer squash. Squash will actually grow just about anywhere you plant it. It's a very hardy and versatile plant, so if you want to add fresh summer squash to your dinner table, grab a few containers and plant those seeds. Keep in mind that you will need to harvest the squash regularly when it begins to grow so that the plants don't get bogged down. You should be able to get about 3 squashes each week when they start growing, so be sure to get them off the plant to make room for new growth. 4. Parsley. Parsley grows very well in containers, so if you love adding fresh parsley to your dishes, this is the perfect herb to grow on the balcony or porch. Parsley grows well in small containers and only requires partial sunlight, so it's the perfect food to grow in apartments or other tight spaces. You will need to keep the soil moist for the best results and take care that you don't overwater your plants. It grows best in temperatures between 40 and 80 degrees, which makes it perfect for winter container gardens. Just remember to bring it indoors at night so that it doesn't get too cold. 5. Strawberries. Strawberries actually thrive in containers despite being known as a plant that needs plenty of room to grow. They are actually one of the best plants to grow in pots, and they thrive even indoors, so you can grow your own fresh strawberries all year long. You need to choose a sunny spot, and this can be by a window. Strawberries can also be supplemented with artificial sunlight, which makes them perfect for winter growing. You do need to choose a container large enough to handle them, and make sure that you harvest them regularly when they begin to produce to make room for additional growth. 6. Pineapple. You can enjoy pineapple anytime during the year by growing it yourself, even if you don't live in a tropical area. Start with a fresh pineapple and cut off the crown, leaving a bit of fruit at the top. You'll want to soak the crown for a day or so in water to allow it to soak up moisture, and then plant in a gallon-sized plastic container. You will want to choose a warm, sunny spot for your pineapple, which makes it a great choice for balconies and decks. If you are growing during the winter, be sure to bring the plant in at night. 7. Cantaloupe. Yes, you can grow cantaloupe in a container. If you love this sweet melon and you don't really have a garden spot to grow your own, just pick up a couple of rather large containers and you can grow enough to last you all summer. Any variety of cantaloupe can be grown in containers, and you can let the vines spill over the side or support them with sticks. Smaller plants which produce smaller melons are the best choice for container gardening because they have more room to grow. But you can do larger varieties as long as you have somewhere the vines can fall, or if you are going to use bean poles or other support. 8. Oregano. Oregano is a very popular choice for container herbs, and it grows very well in any sort of container. In fact, growing oregano in a container helps to prevent spreading, so if you want to keep your oregano under control, containers are actually recommended by most expert gardeners. You just need a small container for each plant and a bit of potting soil. Oregano is an easy-to-grow herb, and it's very hardy, so you should have no trouble getting it to grow well. Choose a sunny spot to put your oregano during the day and then bring it in at night, especially if you are growing it during winter. 9. Rosemary. Having an herb garden doesn't actually mean having a large garden space. You can grow many herbs in containers, and rosemary is one that does very well with regards to container gardening. Choose potting soil that has a minimum of peat moss. Rosemary prefers alkaline pH, so the acid is great for helping it to thrive. You'll want a bit of sand in the bottom of the container for drainage, and the surface should be allowed to dry out just a bit between waterings, although it should never be completely dry. 10. Peppers. Sweet peppers really thrive in containers, so if you love adding red, yellow, or green peppers to your favorite foods, you can grow them easily even without a garden space. Choosing the right size container is important here. You want the peppers to have room to grow and not be squashed. Smaller peppers will require at least a 2-gallon container, while larger varieties will need a 5 or 10-gallon pot. You will want to allow the peppers at least 8 hours of sunlight each day, when possible, so choose a spot that gets plenty of direct sunlight. You can bring them in at night if you want, just take them back out each morning for full sunlight. 11. Chives. Chives are without a doubt one of the hardiest herbs that you can plant. They grow very well in containers or just about anywhere else you want to plant them. Chives are great for adding flavor to soups, dips, and of course, baked potatoes. Chives are also perennial, so once you plant them, they'll come back year after year. You can move them indoors if you want to keep your harvest going all year long, but they do prefer a bit of sunlight throughout the day, so choose a spot where they can get some sun at least through a window during the winter. 12. Bananas. If you love bananas, and even if you don't live in the tropics, you can grow a banana plant inside the house, even during the cold winter months. Dwarf banana plants grow perfectly inside, and they are perennial, so once you plant them, you'll have bananas year after year. You'll want to make sure that the container you use is fairly deep and has a drainage hole so that you don't drown out your banana plant. These thrive indoors or out and are perfect for balconies and decks during the summer. Plus, you can grow them indoors all winter long. 13. Spinach. Spinach is so good for you, and it grows really well in containers. You will want one 8-inch container for each spinach plant. Keep in mind that spinach is a bit heat sensitive, so to keep leaves from wilting, avoid direct sunlight. Containers tend to get rather warm during the summer, so choose a nice, shady spot to place them outdoors. You can also grow spinach indoors, and they grow very well during the winter months. You do need to keep them well watered during the winter, though, to avoid drying out from indoor heat. 14. Thyme. Thyme is another herb that does exceptionally well in containers, and you can grow it indoors or out. You can actually have an herb garden in containers and plant your thyme with basil, oregano, and other herbs if you want, or just have a container for thyme alone. Clay pots work best for thyme because they prevent drying out between watering. Thyme will not grow well if you overwater it, so be sure to choose a container that has an adequate drainage hole in the bottom. You can grow it indoors during winter, but it is recommended that you allow it some fresh sunlight during spring and summer months. 15. Sage. Get ready for those turkey dinners by growing your own sage. Sage is an herb that grows very well in containers, and you can grow it indoors or out. Sage does prefer sunlight, so if you don't have a big enough window to supplement it during the winter, you may need to use artificial lighting. If you are planning to grow it on a balcony or even in a window box, you should be fine. Just place the containers somewhere that the plant has access to plenty of direct sunlight. You can grow it indoors as well, as long as you provide sufficient lighting for most of the day. 16. Cucumbers. Cucumbers are very easy to grow in containers and you can keep them growing all winter long in most cases. You can also grow them vertically to maximize the space that you have available. Just let them vine up your deck railing or even the side of your house if you are putting the containers outdoors. Salad bush hybrids, midget picklets and space masters are the best varieties of cucumbers. For container gardening, although any type will thrive if you care for it properly. Be sure to allow plenty of space for the vines and harvest regularly once they begin producing so that they don't weigh the vines down and weaken them. 17. Kale. Kale is great for container gardening and really doesn't need much space. You can grow about 5 kale plants in a 20-inch pot, and growing in containers allows you to move them about into the shade or inside out of the cold during the winter months. It is relatively easy to grow and allows you to have a fresh supply of kale all year long. You can begin your kale containers with transplants or direct seeds, whichever you prefer. Don't let them get too dry, but don't overwater either, and make sure that you allow a bit of indirect sunlight every day. 18. Lettuce. Lettuce is one of the easiest of all plants to grow in containers. You can sit the containers out on the balcony or deck for sunlight, and you can begin your own seedlings at the end of winter for the next planting season. Just sow your lettuce seeds directly into potting soil inside a large container. You can plant lettuce with other greens such as cilantro or arugula if you need to save space. You may need to transplant into a larger container when the plants begin to grow, but keep the containers small enough so that you can easily move them inside and out for sunlight. 19. Radishes. Radishes add great flavor to salads and other dishes and can be grown easily in containers. Short, red radishes can be grown in just about any container that you have on hand. Longer, white radishes thrive very well in paint buckets or similar containers. Radishes are actually a recommended vegetable for first-time gardeners because they grow so well. You are sure to get a great harvest from your radish containers. Just make sure that you water them every few days and sit them beside a window or out on the patio for a bit of sunlight a couple of hours each day. 20. Quinoa. Quinoa is a whole grain that is packed full of nutrients, and it's a food that you can easily grow in a container. It's actually a very hardy plant that is not terribly picky about where it grows, which makes it perfect for growing indoors or on patios. Plant the seeds directly into potting soil in a rather large container. Quinoa plants grown in containers only reach about 2 feet in height, so they won't take up much room, and you can begin harvesting them in the fall. They are very hardy plants and very low maintenance, which makes them perfect for container gardening. Was this video helpful? Share your feedback with us in the comments section below.